Hey, how you doing, everyone? I'm hoping that you're doing okay. Welcome back to another good video review. I have a really exciting book today, like I usually do, but it's hard sometimes to, I don't want to say finding good books, but there's a lot of good books. You just have to seek through them. But anyway, we have a lot of good stuff today, and I want to talk about like the right story. And so stories. And so when you offer somebody a story, or you tell a story, I should say, why do we find some stories more engaging than others? Some boring, so more dull. Well, it's how you put it into words. It's how you're telling it, right? And there's lots of stories out there that make things kind of fun and slash boring, I guess you can say. And we get very excited, and we have a lot to know about a story when somebody tells it. And there's good storytellers versus not so good storytellers. And so I have this book here that I read. It's called The Right Story, and it's by Bernadette Jawa. I think that's how you would say that. And it's a brief guide to changing the world. And it's not a very lengthy book. It's probably about, let's see, 156 pages. So it's not a very bad. I mean, there's big words in it, like, well, the font's pretty big. So you can actually go through it. But I want to read you something first before I tell you more about it. So the real difference between us and chimpanzees. So if you know anything about DNA, uh, chimpanzees and humans share about 98% DNA, right? And so, off of that, the real difference between us and chimpanzees is the mysterious glue that enables millions of humans to cooperate effectively. Cooperate effectively. This mysterious glue is made of stories, not genes. So that was an interesting quote that I read from the book here, is that it's not just that we're made of genetics and atoms and stuff like that. It's the stories that create our way of thinking. And very cool. And if you're looking through it as a scientist, yeah, I know that you see the small stuff, but looking at it as a broad thing, we're used to stories that run the world, right? And a good story is a good story that persuades you to buy something, or a story that you tell your grandkids, or you tell your children growing up, you tell your friends, we have stories every day, and it's just an experience. So the author of this book, uh, uh, she's a recognized global authority on strategic storytelling, and she's and from Australia. She was a top business thinker in 2018, and this is a 2019 book. So she was going through all these steps, and I guess she's a renowned storyteller. And what she says that in her books, that stories are how we change things. We can't make progress without them. So that was interesting. That kind of got to me when I was reading the book. And we can only create the future we want to see by bringing other people with us on our journey. So you got to a story is only good as the people you're around, right? And there is only the wrong story or the right story. The right story is the one we trust. And that's kind of interesting, right? I mean, we have all these stories in the world, and some of them are kind of like more thoughtful than others, and some of them are like, well, is that true or not? And especially with the media today, and people get kind of bogged down. You just have to be careful of your sources and stuff like that. And this book, when she wrote it, this book was about that how you can get better at articulating the change you want to create for understanding the people who you want to influence, inspire, and impact. So telling the right story is how you impact the people to look at you in a way. So you want to inspire people, you want to make an impact on them. And that's really the point of what she's trying to describe in this book, is that we have this emotion center in our brains. And we have all these sets in our brains, our frontal lobe, our peripheral lobe, our occipital lobe, our octovial lobe, I think that's how you say that. And then inside you have this, what we call amygdala. And amygdala is like your control center of your brain. It's like right in the center. And that's kind of where your emotions come in. I mean, we are filled with emotions. If you tell a good story to somebody and you get their emotions to it, they're going to remember that story because you're playing another part of the senses. And so you have all these neurons and neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters is kind of like your feelings, it's kind of like when you're telling a story and you very much like it, you're kind of feeling that dopamine effect. A dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your head that makes you feel good. We like to feel good. And so that dopamine comes in. And then when we have empathy for somebody, it's another neurotransmitter called oxytocin. It's another neurotransmitter for feeling that. And so we have all these in our brain. And if you can attach a story onto somebody's emotion, they're going to remember it. They're going to buy into it. And so stories are the cornerstone of human connection and collaboration. Drivers of the thought and actions of people. So it's not just what we say that help people to make up their minds. It's everything we do. One that enables an emotional connection with another person, poor outcomes or undesired results happen. So, like I said before, if you're not playing to somebody's emotions, they're not going to get it. And so, I want to read you another thing about in this book here. It's about like a progress. In progress, what she says depends on having a shared sense of purpose. So when you tell a story, some stories are more important than others because they have a purpose to them or they have a point to them. And we do that. We look for that. And you want to kind of have somebody see it in a different lens as somebody that's storytelling. And I think it's what you call as your expectations when you ask, well, what is your expectations when you tell a certain story? Or you want them to be like, oh my God, surprise, or sad, happy, I don't know. And so what's your expectations of that? And when you tell somebody a story, it's a change in their attitude. It's a change. And change takes time. And I know maybe that doesn't make sense, but what if you want to tell a story about biology? And you're telling something how biology is created, or maybe you're telling a story about biology versus evolution, and you tell the story of Darwin and his voyage to the Galapagos Islands. And that's a story that you're telling to kind of get people to persuade on. And you're trying to make a change. And that's what she's trying to say. It's a brief guide to changing the world. So that was a big controversial too, right? Darwin versus just creationism. Anyway, so that was very cool. So we learn to communicate haphazardly by example, by mimicking our parents, teachers, and role models. So to communicate, we watch other people do it. We watch our teachers, we watch our parents, we watch people that are on the news, your friends. We mimic that. And sometimes there's better people storytelling than us. And that's okay. We all have different talents. But we learn by imitating. We learn by mimicking people. And here's an example. When you're growing up and you're around, I don't know, toddlers and stuff like that, and you watch your dad with a razor, kind of shaving himself. And then if you're a child that watches the dad in the mirror one day, you start to do it yourself. You're kind of mimicking that a little bit. You're learning from them because that's passed down. That's how we learn. There's a very famous social psychologist, behavioral psychologist, I think he was, Albert Bandura. And he says that we learn by imitating people. Imitation is what we go on, and we mimic. And look into that if you want to. It's a good book about that. But you have this kind of change happens because enough people are persuaded to act. So if you want a story to kind of have effect on people, you want to change your mindset. you got to have enough into it to change it and use those senses. And so it's a process. To a certain degree. If you think about, I want you to. I was going to read something to you. Making change happens. So you ever heard, or maybe you have this at home. You ever have like the Dyson vacuum cleaner? The Dyson vacuum cleaner, it's Dyson, and it's a vacuum cleaner that has no bag, so you don't have to empty the bag or buy another bag. It goes into a little suction clear thing, and then you take this section out, and then you empty it in the garbage can, and you just replace it. It's a Dyson vacuum cleaner. They're very expensive. But the thing about him, she says that James, so his first name is James, spent 5 years perfecting this vacuum cleaner. That they didn't want people to go out and buy another bag because bags get expensive, especially vacuum cleaners. And so it revolutionized the vacuum cleaner industry. That had an effect on other corporations' vacuum cleaners because one, it's like, well, how are we going to give the bags? How are we going to get our money? If you just give people the vacuum cleaner, or have them buy the vacuum cleaner, but they don't have to buy another bag to replace it, you're kind of losing that money, right? And so think about all the good stuff that he's doing. But this took him a long time to perfect this and to get this out because the industry was very against that because they wanted to have profit. They wanted to profit. And so what she was trying to say, Dyson approached all the vacuum companies and domestic appliances manufacturers and secured meeting with the most of them. They had good luck but were simply not interested in investing opportunity further. Dyson's system did away with the need of replacing the dust bag that was essential for the controversial vacuum function. Selling the replacement dust bags generated considerable revenue for these market leaders. No wonder they were reluctant to change their business model. So now he's a I think a billionaire or something, or millionaire or something like that. If you look him up, but a lot of people have Dyson. He's a very good. I mean, he has Dyson fans, Dyson vacuum cleaners. But anyway, he is a known name, and it revolutionized the industry a little bit. And so you have to think about that story of how he worked on something and made a difference, and it took him a long while to get everybody to get kind of on it. And so I want you to read that because that takes time. It takes a process. It's something that you can't do instantly. And if you think about persuasion, we love to persuade. If you can tell a story, if you can be a good storyteller, you can be a good persuader. If you think about it, look what happened back in World War II. I mean, we were on the verge of, we were doing a world war, but we were fighting with each other. And think about what happened. We did propaganda. There was propaganda about, join the war, do this. That was a persuasion technique. That was almost like a story. Be like be brother in arms or something like that. You can conquer. You can beat the Germans. That was the propaganda technique. And people seen posters all over the board, and they were looking into that. I was like, okay, that story says I can be one of those people. And that was something that a story can help advertise that. So communication isn't only about finding the right words. It's about finding the right way and the right time to say it. So that's one example. Comedians do this. Sometimes the comedians, to make a good comedian, they circle the room. They want to know their audience, and at the right time, they say something funny to keep the audience revved up. And so it's not just what you have to say; it's the timing of it too. And so you have to prime people on that. So I want to read another thing to you. Is that she patented this thing, and if you want to look at this here. And it's a staircase, but it says stages of change. And what these are, I read them to you. The stages of change, so this little staircase, she says you have to acknowledge, you have to make people aware, you have to make an agency. That's kind of like you want to make people become confident. And then you have the adoption of it. and then you have the action, and then the adherence. The adherence is the new behavior that sets in. And then you have accuracy, accuracy, and that's kind of where people become orientated to it. So it's that leader. So it's that change of that stages of change that make your story effective. And so you want to make people aware of it, and then you kind of want to gradually upkeep into it. Very important. I think that's something to kind of kick there. But if you think about it, our mindset can change how we process and perceive information. People's minds change based on what you're given to them with enough time. It's your desired results, the desired results of the story. And then she kind of quotes that a path is usually the most easily navigated route between two places. So I think how you're changing these two places, that if you have 2 points, it's the journey in between. So remember that story that if you watched the video about a success, and if you're down here, you have to have a starting point for like a goal. And if you don't have a starting point, but you have to make it measurable, but you also kind of have to see it too. And it's between this journey to get to that point makes the story what it is, believable. And if that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. You have to probably watch the other video. It's on goals, I do believe. I forgot who the author was. But you can buy attention, but you can't buy trust. I really like that. You can buy people's attention. You can have people's attention. You can buy it, but you can't buy the trust. And it takes a lot of attention, connection, persuasion, and then action on that. And that's kind of like an infinity symbol. They all are all connected. Some people you have to have attention, action, connection, and persuasion. This is out there. And so our ideas succeed when we trust and believe by the right people. So the right people, in order to believe somebody, you have to have the right people too. But it's really fun. And trust has to be earned. Trust has to be earned. And it takes time for the trust to be earned. And then once the trust is gone, it takes a lot of time to get that trust back. This is why you should always kind of tell the truth and be trustworthy people, and stop lying, and don't do anything to wreck that trust. And it's really hard to get that back. I don't know. But storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas in the world. And it's starting with the why is the most important part, because if we focus only on the how, the delivery, then our stories fall flat, and we are less likely to create the change we are hoping to make. I like that. I like that how she said that. So I don't know where that last one went. I was going to read you something else, but maybe if I can't find it, that's okay. That's okay. Our culture is changed not only because of what we do, but by the way we do it. How we do things becomes our legacy. And so we're always uncertain about what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And you have all the results or all the data you want, but we're always uncertain of that happen. And it's the person in our culture that connects all of us. And sometimes that doesn't always go well. So storytelling is much about showing as it is about telling. Very important. And so it's kind of how you drive that delivery of that story that makes sense. And so a couple more things here. I don't want to go too much more into this. We have to go where people are if we're going to get them on something better. So I think you have to find people too. So storytelling is not for everybody. People don't always want to listen to stories. They want to listen to whatever they listen to, and it just takes sometimes the right people too. And I think that you can use this as a bad thing too. Sometimes you can use stories as brainwashing. And if you know anything about psychology, there's I forgot what it was in the 70s, the early 70s, Jim Jones. He was a person of very highly storytelling persuasion. And if you know the story about it, over 900 people died on his little private, his cult, I guess you can say. It's called Jim Jones. He was the preacher of that, and people trusted him because they thought that he was a good persuader. He was a good talker. He knew what he was talking about. And you want to watch that. It's very sad because people believe that. And so I think your storytelling can also be manipulated too, and just crazy how you can pick that kind of stuff. But it's all about emotions. If you get people's emotions on your side and they trust that, you'd be surprised what you can do. And even justice can do that. You're trying to be in a court and you're telling a story about, I'm not guilty because this, and it all makes sense. And if you go straight directly to people's emotions, they will get on your side. So it's really just, stories are a compass for the heart. They move us to act, create a better future you cannot yet see. And that's really important. They create a change for us that we can see. And so, very interesting book. And I think that it's worth buying. I forgot how much this was. Sometimes you can find it on the back of the book. Sometimes, or they have a sticker, and it doesn't say. I think I got this on Amazon. But very interesting book. I think that it is worth looking at if you want to be a writer, or maybe you want to be an influencer or something like that. I think it has a lot of value in there. So I think I'm going to keep this book and put it on my my to do or to read again list someday. So hopefully that helps. Hope that you're finding these good, and I'm hoping the storytelling I'm telling is really good. But yeah, hope that you find a lot of value into this, and it's really nice. So hopefully you had fun with that, and I will see you in the next video.